Hi, everyone. Welcome to season 1, episode 1 of the Lotus Pond. Guys, this is such a brand new show that we already have some little glitches and little organizational problems. We had like a whole bunch of guests, and yeah, we have one guest right now. So I am live on YouTube and I'm also live on Meet Me. So if anybody on Meet Me wants to join us as a guest, please feel free to come over to my YouTube channel, The Lotus and the Light, and you are free to join us. So I want to introduce my co-host as well as my guest for tonight, Pappy Black Rob B, and he goes by the name as Boogie here on the Meet Me channel. Hi, guys.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having us.
So Rob and I actually started this show I started this show called The Great Debate like years ago, like about 4 years ago. And I would have different co-hosts through the years until I met Rob. And then Rob became like my standard co-host for The Great Debate. But this year, we didn't want to bring back The Great Debate for season 4. We wanted to change it up a little bit. And we came up with the idea of calling it the Lotus Pond. From the mud comes the message, because the idea of the lotus pond is that a lotus flower grows through muddy water, right? But it still blooms and it's still beautiful. And I feel like as Rob and I bring these current events topics, these hot topics, these debatable topics, I'm sure that we can find some form of community, some togetherness. We can agree to disagree, but we can always leave a situation, a topic, a discussion in a positive way. So that's why we called it the Lotus Pond. And Boogie, you are our first guest. We're so happy to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Right. He's like, I'm the only one here. Thank you. I'm going to jump right in. Okay. And I have my 2 topics and Rob has his topics. My first topic has to do with current events, what's happening in America right now. And the question is very simple. Are we still scared of ICE? Because what we're seeing right now, when ICE first came on the scene, due to President Trump's orders, they were coming into cities and there was a lot of fear, right? People were afraid of being grabbed up and snatched up and taken from their cars. And we have videos on TikTok and everywhere talking about, oh, look, they just grabbed him out in the middle of the street. So now we're seeing cities fight back. Most notably today, we saw Chicago's mayor actually deemed today they have ICE-free zones, where zones in the cities that ICE cannot come into. And I thought, oh, that's something different. That's unique. So we are seeing other cities fight back as well. And I just want to know from you guys, what do you feel about it? Are you still scared or have the fear energy about ICE? Cities are fighting back. Where's your energy about this?
Rob, you want to go first?
All right. I will go ahead and just say, reference that ice has been on this planet for quite a while. I've never been afraid of ice. Matter of fact, I have some ice in my cup over there. As a matter of fact, nah, all jokes aside, look, it's an interesting dynamic, and I don't think it's over by a long shot. It's just a matter of like the news cycle is always ever flowing. Like it's ice today and then something tomorrow. So like people just tend to brush it under the rug when they get new information. Um, it's a scary time for a lot of people. So you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, and you worry about the people that are closest to you, and for those people who don't actually know somebody that is affected by this, they don't really think about it on a daily day basis. Like they're not updated or informed on what's happening on out there. So I think it's a scary situation where our our country is in a state of discord, if you will. So I don't have no solutions for it. I just know that we just got pray and make actions, and hopefully those actions will affect some changes.
I like that you mentioned the fear mongering because I feel like that is so true. Ever since, we've been in this year, we've been in like the past few years, there's been a lot of people just spreading all of these fear energy, right? Just either it's their thoughts, their opinions, and I feel like it's getting out of hand, right? So I like that you mentioned that because I'm not afraid, and you would think, right? Me being a brown woman, an American citizen, but a brown woman living in America, but I'm not afraid because it's been very clearly laid out what they're doing and who they're targeting and who they're looking at. But do you feel um, outside of America? And I'm going to pose this to Boogie because you are American, but you're not in America at the current time. Do you feel the energy outside of America? Are they fearing for us? Right?
Yeah, look, to be honest with you, here in Australia, a lot of people are laughing
Yeah.
because the signs were there from the beginning. The rhetoric that was put forward, and I think, like Obama said, you thought it was funny, you kept laughing, and now who's laughing? Um,
Right.
People were warned, people were given an opportunity. And the way I see it from my perspective is even with the re-election, the warning signs were there. The Democrats were not as strong in their warning to say, look, he's going to do this, but the signs were there. He, like Trump said, he would be a dictator and things like that. And people laughed it off. They shrugged it off, and he won by popular vote. And now he's attacking his own citizens. So the way we are seeing it here is like a learning curve. So when we just had our election a few months ago, we one of the runners that was running is a Trump supporter and even used Trump's resources to try and market himself, and he lost by one of the largest landslides in Australian history because we don't want the same thing here. So we're actually looking at America as like I guess, like a book, learning from it with what not to do in politics, not what not to become. But the fear mongering in media, making it sound like ICE is like on every street corner, on everybody's front door, and just tackling everybody, that is what's creating misinformation. Yes, they're out there, we're aware of it, but it's how the narrative is told
Right.
that is considered very misleading, very, very misleading. Same like the LA issue, they made it sound like all of LA had ICE, all of LA had the National Guard, but it was just literally one block,
All right.
and media is responsible for that fear mongering.
I want to welcome our friend from Meet Me, Blue Bloods. Hello, Blue Bloods. Welcome to our
Good
show.
evening, guys.
Being here. And I know you were following me on Meet Me and you heard the topic and you wanted to jump in. Now, the cool thing is Blue Bloods is a retired police officer from New York. So what are your thoughts about this? You're living in New York. Are you afraid of ICE? Are you afraid of them coming to your city?
Yeah, there's not going to be any need for them in New York because our department has handled it very well,
Can't
even
hear you,
with
Blue
the
Bloods.
illegal migrants here. And Boogie will tell you he knows my training
Yeah.
and he knows what I'm all about. So I mean, we're not going to need them here. Meanwhile, we don't have 30 people shot and 10 killed. Over
Right.
there, he's making zone free and knows this and that. Meanwhile, he doesn't want to take responsibility for his police department. A chief of patrol is like the number 3 guy in the department. You don't put an order out. If fellow officers matter, if it's federal, state, city, whatever, you go help your people. You don't turn your back on them. I have never done that. And that's people that didn't like me. But you know what? I want you to go home the same way I went home, in one piece.
And I think that's what people are missing from police officers. There's so much fear about police officers, but there's actually officers like yourself that really care about the public and care about the job that you take on. I was talking earlier about Chicago just today. The Chicago mayor deemed certain areas in the city ICE-free zones. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that's going to become the norm in other cities as well? The other mayors are going to follow the Chicago Mayor, on
I
that?
believe so. I believe so. I believe a lot of politicians need to start pushing back because, and it will become the norm as long as MAGA and certain Republicans. I'm not going to say all Republicans, but believe in what Trump is doing, and they're not looking at the history books that this is what Hitler did, this is what Stalin did, this is what Mussolini did. Yeah, we need to start taking precautions, and it will have to become where we're going to have sort of like the Cold War, where you can be on one street but you can't cross to the other because you'll be, in their domain and it's their rules. And unfortunately, that seems to be where the path is heading down. Instead of, using the law to its fullest, Trump basically put his people in charge to get away with, murder. I mean, listen to the rhetoric when he was running. I can shoot a man in Central Park and they won't do nothing to me. And this is pretty much what he's doing right now. His first term, he launched the military on the civilians just to go do a posing with a Bible that was upside down, but, at the end of the day, people have goldfish memory. Today, it'll be the phase of, ICE and all of that. Give it another week, and it'll be another topic boundary. People are going to forget ICE, and they will continue what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. All right. Anyone else want to add to that? Rachel in the comments. Hi, Rachel. She said, I'd like to see more mayors and politicians follow the lead of the mayor of Chicago. And I think that's going to be the general rhetoric and we have a mutual friend who always, she comes to our stream and she talks about the fair and the pandemonium about what's going on and everything. And I never bought it because I just feel like, and I said this from the get-go, from when Trump was elected and people were like, oh, scared and, this and that's going to happen. And I said, this is America. And Americans, we are the worst trolls, right? We are the worst trolls. I remember when they first released the ICE. ICE had a phone number. Do you guys remember this? When this first came out, ICE had a phone number and you could call in to report suspicious activity, suspicious people, and everybody was calling in. They said they were flooded. They were flooded with calls of people reporting Elon Musk. Right. So we're like the biggest trolls. And I feel that what we're seeing now with the mayors and the cities fighting back and saying, no, my city, my rules, I feel it's going to become more widespread. So I don't feel like people have to live in fear in America. Do you guys mirror that
experience? Was that Blue Bloods? You go for it. But.
No, what I'm going to say is that in my 34 years of being in the street in New York, I have never heard a boss turn and say, oh, we ain't going to help the Port Authority police. We're not going to help the court officers by the court, say down on Center Street if they had a condition. We go and we help. And that's what we do. Right. He's saying now, he's perpetrating a fraud. The mayor of Chicago is saying that it never went over the air. It was misconstrued. It was misinformation. The same thing with the governor of Illinois. Meanwhile, it's in black and white. It's on a recorded thing because whenever you have a call coming in to 911 or over the air through one of the office's radios, it is recorded and it can be used in your defense and it can be used against you in the court of law.
Thank you. All right. I loved the thought processes, the perspectives, the opinions.
Can I just say one thing?
Shared about that. Yeah.
Okay, just one thing. So I want to say something. I want to say something concerning something that happened. And Boogie worked with my department, and he knows how our demeanor is. If somebody approaches you in an escalating way, you step back. You're not afraid of anybody, but you know what? You're going to come out the better person. That person is, going to come out in a different way. So I step back from issues unless you reach out and we start to poke the bear, and you poke me, then I poke you back. But otherwise, that's why I lasted as long as I did on the streets of New York.
That's a good point. I want to kick it over to Rob, who has our second topic for tonight for discussion. So Rob, I'm going to give it over to you.
Second question of the night is, Do you feel like we're overdue for a national conflict? Like, we overdue for having a civil war to create a new regime, if you will.
A national conflict. Ooh,
Mhm.
who wants to tackle that?
I'll
Um,
put. Well, sir, you worked in intelligence. I almost made it there, so you take the floor on that one.
okay. Look, at the end of the day, when you look at the history of civilization, even, not too long ago, when a country becomes complacent, the saying, idle hands is the devil's playground.
Right.
People become idle, they become sudden experts, and there's going to become a lot of animosity. And it's a cycle in human history where civilizations crumble from within. And then because of different views or whatever, or religion. So in this aspects, yes, I would say America's heading to another civil war or signs of a civil war because it's created a divide that has become its culture in some aspects, and it allowed people, I don't like when we were brought up, we were told if you got nothing good to say, shut the hell up, and things like that. Now people believe they can say whatever they want. And because we have a leader telling them say whatever they want, as long as it's in his favor, people are fighting amongst each other, and it's creating more and more of a divide. And they weaponize the media to keep that divide going. So in this case, yes, America is heading to that great divide. And I hope to God it doesn't turn into military, because a lot of generals got a lot of common sense, and commissioners and police officers, but the actions of a few seem to speak louder than the actions of the majority.
Well, sir,
You
I got
know,
to ask you a question. You work with our department for many years, and you know
yes,
our what is it? You know how our phases and mobilizations and so on. But the thing is that we handle our business here. And when somebody asked me today, why do you say we're the finest department in the world? I take pride in what I did. I look at my den and I see all my certificates and my commendations, and I'm proud of that. And I don't
yeah,
let anybody undercut me or try to put me in my back against the wall. I come out fighting. I still do it at my age. Doesn't make a difference.
same.
Are we due for a national conflict? I'm gonna I'm gonna disagree. I'm gonna disagree on that. I don't think we're due for a national conflict. I think that things get very elevated, tempers rise, words are said, there's back and forth, but I don't think anybody really wants a World War III, right? As much as the leaders talk about that they do, and this is what it's coming to, I don't think anybody really wants war. War is expensive. War is draining to communities, right? And I just feel like I don't think we're heading towards a national conflict. So I think I'm the only one. I don't know, Rob, what did you feel? Because you posed the question, but did you feel like
Go with it, sir. Make me feel good.
yeah.
Uh, okay,
Spread some
so
knowledge.
I, I think one of my favorite comedians said it best years ago is everyone wants to be the head of the oppression committee. Like that everyone has something to be oppressed about. And the dynamic is really about fighting to be the top oppressed person and not really making change for the betterment of their community and the people around them and the country as a whole. So I don't think we're gonna really if we do head to a civil war, so to speak. I don't think it'll be like Boogie said. It won't be like it was in the past. We're always looking to the past to see how we can not repeat stuff. But like I think as we progress in society, we're gonna actually change the dynamic of how we disagree with one another and what the overall attacks and stuff are gonna look like. I think Netflix did it best, what, a year or so ago, when they put out that movie. What was
Civil
it?
War.
What was the name of the movie?
Civil War.
Um,
Yeah.
That's Marvel.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was it?
I
The
don't
World
think it
Ends
will
or something?
get to
The
that
one with
level
the one
of
with the
Civil
Julia
War.
Roberts. Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
what I was thinking the same thing. You're talking about Leave the World Behind. That's
Yeah.
the movie he's talking about. I was thinking the
Okay.
same thing. Yeah. That was a good movie.
You see, for me, the way I look at it, and this is my industry, we analyze data, we find patterns, we look at the history, and something I was told from since I was young, and this is from my grandfather, in order to understand the future of mankind, look at their past, because we tend to repeat it constantly. We
Right.
may get more intelligent, we just make the same mistake in a more complicated way. Right. So when we talk about World War III, right now we're technically in a World War III because it's cyber warfare. It's not military. It's not a physical. It's the sort of like the Cold War period. It wasn't physical. It was intelligence warfare, tit for tat, back and forth. But America has had for a long time clear signs of a lot of disgruntled citizens. That's why we have those militias. And if you go to certain states, they're very anti system, anti-government, anti-police, they call them tyrants and things like that. They have a lot, and now those people have a lot of say, and they're gaining a following, and how it's going to be put to silence is what the question is. And what I think the Chicago mayor did was correct. Instead of all out fighting and having people challenge, and just create zones. This is a free zone where you are not allowed to go. That's your zone where you're allowed to go, unless, that compromise, you know. But all out military, I don't think generals will sign up for it, because
No,
at
I
the
don't think
end of
so.
the day, it'll be hard to fight a civil war when you don't even know who's ally or enemy within your military.
That's correct.
Because
You're
when
on
the
point.
military, in the military, people are from all forms of background, all forms. And it will be a devastating thing. And I don't think generals will sign up. And same within the police. Everybody have their views. And we brought up like people are afraid of the police because of the actions of a minor few.
I don't think people are as callous as in the past. Like, I was watching recently over the summer, I was watching that series Yellowstone. I don't know if you guys heard about it, but it was like, it went all the way back. It was like I don't even remember, 1893 and 1932, and then Yellowstone. So it was like the progression, of the settlers in America, and the homesteaders and the people who really like went out into the wilderness and created a house and a town and a village and all of that. And they had to have like in my words, they had to have hard hearts, because you could lose somebody to a wolf, to a famine, to pneumonia, right? Like death was all around you. So it was the norm. So going to war, fighting, killing people over land, that was the norm. It is not the norm today. We are a very highly civilized world. And we don't have families proudly sending their children away to the war and saying things like, if you die on the battlefield, you die with honor. You know what I'm saying? It's more like, well, we want you to go to the military. Let's be real, and get a good college education, and then come on back home. So I feel like we as people are different too. We're more civilized, and we're not surrounded by death as much. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's
I
a yes
think.
and no. Sorry.
Yes and
Go
no.
ahead.
I think it's a yes and no. I think there are people who take pride in serving the
half and half.
country and everything like that.
Yeah.
But where it comes down to at the end of the day, it's, hell, following orders is no excuse out of hell. So when you're given an order in the military, you got to do it either way, be it good or bad.
That's correct.
And even though you can put a moral down, you'll get penalized for it, and if you're willing to go that path. But we may say we're a civilized world, but when you look outside of the US, outside of Australia, Russia was a civilized country, but then the leader went and bombed another country for no apparent reason and made up propaganda. They're Jewish Nazis and things like that, things like that. So, and then we have China, a civilized country. People are happy, people are fed, but China's antagonizing a possibility of war because they want to unify Taiwan back into their fold. So at the end, the major action will come down, like I said again, the minor few, which is the leaders. They're not the ones who are going to be putting their vests on, their boots on, and go pound the pavement with their guns and that. They're sending, Tom, Dick, and Harry and their children to do it for them by using misinformation. And we can be civilized, but it doesn't end war on this planet. Because we're still, if we are truly civilized, we would be a peaceful planet, and there's wars going on, and that same civilization, that same civilized group like America, they've destabilized many countries, replaced governments for $1, and they're meant to be a world, leading by example, and look at what they've created, and they've become what they went to war against other countries over.
Wow. Blue Bloods, you wanted to say something.
Oh no, I'm going to use something as an example. When Boogie mentioned a point where elected officials are supposed to represent everybody. Now we take Dearborn, Michigan. Somebody got up at a meeting before the council of Dearborn, and the mayor says, "Oh, that you're this, and this. You're the mayor of Dearborn, Michigan. Whether you have Arabic people, Black people, white people, Jewish people living in Dearborn, Michigan, you represent everybody. If you're going to come out like that, then you should not be an elected official. Everybody should be included under the same microscope."
Okay.
Yeah. The problem I feel is we once in our civilizations, even America, there was an oversight. There literally was a department that oversaw what was said, how it was said, what is done, how it's spent, and they removed that. And without that oversight, people are running rampant. And that's the problem with ICE. Not all ICE agents are bad. There are those who take pride in their country, but then there are those who love the power. They love the gun. They love the anarchy. And that minor few are the ones being caught in camera doing the wrong thing. So there's a viral video going around where this guy was trolling the agents on the street on a bicycle, and then he dropped his phone and none of them could catch him. Now, when you look at that carefully, and I rewinded it over and over, not every single one of those agents on that corner chased that guy on the bicycle. It's only those who felt their ego was hurt chased him. And that minor few that chased him are the ones that make the rest of them look bad. You understand?
I think that was a really important point you made, because I don't like generalizations. And I feel like we're too advanced beings to live in the world of generalizations. And it's like one thing to share your opinion, but then when you say things like, well, all ICE agents are bad, or all police, and that's not true. Right? Like, I agree with you that the people that are pulling out their phones and they're, making these videos, they're catching the ones that have a power trip. But how much do we know about that? Like, that's a real thing, right? People go into the police department, people go into government because they have like this power trip complex, right? So it's not something new that came about with the ICE agents. That's been around for life. And that has to do more with where people are spiritually. Right?
Yeah.
If you don't have a good awareness of yourself and compassion for yourself and others, you will be a tyrant when you get power. And that was a great point that you made, and I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
I want to flip things a little bit, because the Lotus Pond, it's a pond of many, many things, right? There's all sorts of energy in a lotus pond. There's fauna and flora and amphibians and all the like. And
here we go.
all met. Yeah, I'm gonna say it, because we all met on, a dating app, that we live stream on. And this show used to be called The Great Debate, was started on that dating app. So I feel like every time we have these discussions, we need to bring in something about love and relationships. And I feel like the dating world is so, oh my gosh, there's so many topics that we can talk about. So I have this curious question. It is a personal question, something that I've been pondering on for a while. So I'm going to read it out to you guys. I want to know about dating, right? Is formal dating going away? No more dates. We just meet each other online, and I like you and you like me. So let's do this thing. No more dates. Let's just go straight from talking on the phone, talking on FaceTime, to meeting up, and wham bam, thank you, ma'am. And now we either we go together, right? We go together,
there's no such thing.
We're just having fun.
Yeah.
So
there's no such thing as old school dating like when I was younger. You had to go to the house. You had to meet the parent.
Right.
If you go into taking the young lady junior high or high school, you wear a nice shirt and tie, a nice polo, depending upon the weather, a nice pair of pants. If you wanted to go, a nice pair of cargos and your kicks. And then if you want to stay out later, you let the parents know, we have parental supervision here. I'm Mr. So-and-so is going to drive your daughter home with me in the car, and then he's going to drive me home. But there's no respect today when it concerns that.
But even so, aside from that, right? Because that sounds very like high schoolish. I'm talking about dating, like in our 20s. Like I was blessed, Gen X here. I was blessed to grow up in a time when men were interested in you and they wanted to be your boyfriend. Like when I talk to a lot of females now on my live streaming apps, whether it's the dating app that I stream on or TikTok, when I talk to them, I've met women who have never been on a date. I've met women who's never had a boyfriend. And I'm like, but you have interactions. They're like, yeah, we'll have like one night stands or hookups or situationships. But actually, I want a boyfriend. I want a man to take me on a date and to buy me flowers and stuff like that. And there's women alive to this day that never have been on that. So what's going on? Like, why are we shifting in this direction?
Uma does this. Uma does this to me every week. Why do you do this to me every week, Uma?
Why you keep coming back is the question.
Because I'm the co-host.
Because he's glutton for punishment. Look, at the end of the day, that's becoming my word again of the week. My daughter was
really
right. Look, the way we're seeing a lot of things now of like polyamorous and all that, that's been around a long time. It's just was shunned upon by majority of society. Now we're becoming a bit more accepting on people's own individual choices. So, for example, the town I used to live in Armadale, New South Wales, people didn't believe me when I said that at least 60% of that town was swinging.
Where is this?
There is a town in Florida. I heard about that. There's like a retirement town in Florida, and it's predominantly swingers.
Yeah, a lot of families, believe it or not, even then people joked about it, because parents won't tell their kids, hey, we're swinging. But now people are a bit more open about it. Yes, we're swingers. Or like my mate that lives in Thing, him and his partner, they were married well over a decade, but they also had an open relationship and they were swing and they did all of that and they were happily married. And it comes down to those individuals and their acceptance and that open communication. So I wouldn't say that dating has changed fully in one aspect, because my girlfriend's daughter, her boyfriend, wanted to meet me. He wanted to meet the parent and introduce himself. He walks her home. He wouldn't let her catch a bus on her own. He does all of that. There are some kids that still have that old school mentality, that form of chivalry, and the courting still does exist, and I have seen it. I don't want to sleep with you. I want to court you. I want to get you to get to know me. And then she spent time with his family. They went to the circus together with his whole family, and I'm impressed. But I'm old school as well. I don't want to get to know a boyfriend fully. I'll meet you and nod the head and say, "Hi, nice to meet you," until you put a ring on her finger. You understand?
You feel
And you're
like,
not sleeping over till you say "I do" with her. And if you do
right.
sleep over, you're in the basement while she's upstairs in the attic, and I'm in the middle with 5 shotguns.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That's wild. But like, do you feel
I'll
that
risk it.
that is your situation because you're out of America, that's happening in Australia? Because
No,
I
I
think
mean, I grew up in the
American,
US. I grew up in
no,
the
I
US,
know,
and even my cousin over there.
with the boy that's dating your daughter, he's Australian, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because look what Rachel wrote. She said, this one is all about access. Back in the day, you didn't have 24 access to somebody. Do you guys feel like that is a part of the situation that's going on?
All right,
I don't
I
think so. I think
wanna.
that's generalizing. Sorry, Rob. I think it really is generalizing. I think because we see it on social media, we see it in shows and movies of, "Hey, how you doing? My name is Bob. What's your name? Sandra. Hey, let's get laid. Sweet." And now we're boyfriend and girlfriend. And people consider it the norm. It's a case by case. And this is why I hate that generalization. It's a case. And I don't take it gospel till I get as like enough resources to consider it a study. If I see it one-on-one, well, it's a one-on-one situation. It's like, when your friend comes and said, "Oh, did you know blah blah blah?" I'm not going to take what he said as 100% gospel as a generalization for a whole, because that was his interaction, that was his conversation. I need evidence. So maybe it's the way I was brought up, but coming from a family of scientists and military people, you need to repeat the trial and error till you get a consistent result. And people are believing like chivalry is dead, but there are a lot of gentlemen out there that are well raised. There be them from police background, emergency service. There are still good people passing on good values, just as much as there are people that are lazy and passing on bad values.
All right, I'm
You
going to give
know.
it over to Rob. You had something to say?
I first want to reply to Boogie. As far as my parents will be concerned, I'm a virgin.
Oh, wow.
Let
We're just straight
alone,
lines.
let alone swinging like that. They will never know about anything in the bedroom whatsoever. As far as like the dating scene, and this is just my personal experience and interactions with people and telling me stories and stuff. I think it's really just a more along the lines of people not really wanting what they say they want. There's a lot of people out there that say they want these traditional style relationships, but in reality, they want a little bit of toxicity in their life. They want a little bit of um, this something to disrupt the daily norm of uh, what they do on a day to day basis. And
Oh,
it's the age of clout. It's the age of clout. So like most people that I talk to, they really are in these so-called traditional or non-traditional relationships for the gram or whatever social media platform they're on. Like if you think about how many people out there filming their first interactions with uh, a potential suitor, whether it be male or female. Whereas our generation, when we didn't have phones, we just interacted with one another. Why are you filming
right.
everything that you need to? So it's really just a matter of like what's more important to you. Are you looking for traditional style relationships, or are you looking for validation from complete strangers to solidify that you are in a traditional style relationship? And then even with that being said, traditional style relationships, people don't even really know what that actually means, to be honest with you. Like people always talk about I miss the olden days and stuff like that, but they not taking everything into context. Like the olden style of traditional dating where women were at home taking care of house and home and stuff, and men were out in the workforce, but women weren't allowed to be out in the workforce. You know, now women are actually out in the workforce and, making it for their own. So I've always said since like the second season of the Great Debate is that we need to just update what the traditions are. You know what I'm saying? You can keep some of those old traditions, but you got to update it to the new modern style era because like otherwise it's just going to be in conflict. So
I like what you said about updating what we consider tradition and maybe going more towards a hybrid model. But I have to be honest, what Rachel said in the comments really just kind of got me about the access thing, because I have met so many people on social media that have 100% access to each other. Now, this is where I feel the toxic relationships are coming in, because I remember one time I met a man that got into an online relationship with a girlfriend. Like he was like, I'm her boyfriend, that's my girlfriend. They never met. They never met in real life, but they were on the phone 24/7, to the point where while he's at work, while she's at work, while they're sleeping, while they're showering, they're on the phone. And it was tiring him out. And I told him, I said, you got to tell her no. Like you got to give her my bad, I can't talk to you right now. But honestly, it's like he couldn't do it. Like when it really hit the boiling point was he was trying to spend some time with his son and she was on the phone, and I told him, I said, you got to cut this out because your son may want one-on-one time with you. Well, no, he doesn't have a problem with it. Yeah, but he's not going to tell his dad that. Like he's going to please his dad and want to do whatever his dad wants to do. But you as an adult should know, I need to have alone time with my child away from anybody else, just so he can talk to me. He may want to share things that he can't share because she's there. Of course, the relationship didn't work out, but we're seeing more of that come up. Like there's even a show on TV. I forgot the name of the show, but it's literally they get people to meet who've been in long distance relationships and never met. And I saw that show, and there was a couple who were in a long distance relationship for 12 years and never met for 12 years. What do you guys think about that? Like that's the
Look,
norm.
I'm old school. I literally am. And when I see people, especially on the app that we're on,
Right.
when they're like, oh yeah, I'm in this state, I'm in that state. Well, fine, there's a long distance relationship. But when you never met and you're calling yourself boyfriend, girlfriend, it's like, boy, I'm gonna slap you. Right? To me, yes, just wake up to yourself. If you really want to be in a relationship, you can have a long distance relationship, but go meet that person, spend some time, because because my mother used to say, you never truly know someone till you live with them. And
Right.
when you're running around, and then and that app, I chuckle. It's a would be a really good mental health thesis for psychiatrists and psychologists, when these people are like, oh yeah, we've been dating online, we never met for 6 months and then we broke up. I'm like, well, you never met to break.
Right.
You have to have that
Right.
connection for it to happen, that physical connection. That's why it's called a break up. The physicality is no longer there. But people today, I think, are very complacent. And with the access part, I will agree. But when we talk about the good old days, sometimes you look back at the good old days, and the good old days wasn't as great as we think it was either. And that's something I always tell people. I said, tell me what was so great about those good old days, because I could find as many bad things as well. But yeah, we're living in a world now where people are, no longer reading books and getting educated. They just run with the flow, and yeah, it's amazing.
I feel like my answer to the women that are wondering, where is dating gone? Why are we not going on dates? my answer to that is have your standards, even though it's, 2025, I've never had a problem with men just being in a relationship with me and not wanting to take me anywhere or do anything or buy me things or do all the romantic things that, women love in relationships. But I state my standards from the minute I get into a relationship with a guy, or if a guy's interested in me, I let him know up front, like, this is the kind of life I want with a man. And if that suits you, then we're a match. And if that doesn't suit you, I understand. You need to find somebody who wants to do whatever it is that you want to do, but we need to match on that. So that would be my thing to women, is to just kind of remember you have a say in this and you get to also direct the flow. So if you want dates, you got to ask for it. And like Boogie said, there's a lot of old school guys out here that will want to date you and actually be in a relationship with you and not just keep it as a casual thing. All right, we are running out of time. So I'm going to kick it over to Rob for our last topic so we can try to end on time as best as we can.
Woo, man, I could have went another 20 minutes on that one. But let's go.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
I had some commentary, but we're gonna keep it moving.
well, we actually had the
Alright.
same conversation amongst the boys just literally 2 days ago about relationships, and it was meant to be a 5-minute conversation. We were talking till 0600 in the morning because none of
Yeah.
us could
Thanks.
agree.
It's definitely a topic. Like that's why every time we do this show, I want to bring in a love and relationships topic just to
Yeah.
throw it out there. All right, Rob.
All right, last question of the night. How important is social awareness, and are we doomed to lose it? Because there's a lot of people who are not socially aware.
Wow.
Wow, I can go on forever on this one.
Speaking of dating. Speaking of dating.
Look,
Social awareness.
Look, I would say social awareness. I don't know if it's the hypervigilance of the PTSD or whatever, but there's very few things that go over my head. Reading people's body mannerisms, or just even keywords when they're talking, I will find contradictory in their words. I will find, hypocrisy. I just can't help it. And even today, as a prime example, two people walked past me and walked inside. I stepped outside, and less than 2 seconds, I noticed a turtle in my yard. No one noticed it. I did. So that awareness of your surroundings, people, and all of that, I think it's a dying skill because people don't pay attention. You look at accidents that are preventable because people are just in their own little bubble, their own little universe, and like nothing exists outside of it. Or even in the suburbia where, people live in their own little cocoons and nobody knows what goes on anymore. Nobody knows, I wouldn't say the good old days, but in our generation when we were kids, the whole street knew your business to a certain level. They
Right.
knew what was going on. They knew when there's a problem. People don't care anymore. There's a fear factor to that too, because if they put their nose in, they don't want to get too involved, or they don't want repercussions of getting involved. So people have basically created this wall in their lives where they're not aware of what's going on outside of themselves. They're not aware about the politics. They're not aware about crime. And they're like, oh, I don't look at the news anymore because it's always depressing. Well, life is depressing, hun, but you got to still stay informed. You don't have to take it on you, but you could still be informed. And that's my issue with society today. They have no awareness of the what's happening beyond the tip of their nose.
I feel like it's really hard to have social awareness right now because now before this even happened, we just had people spreading false narratives, right? Just hit and go live and making a video and then sharing what they feel. No fact, no basis for truth. Just this is my feelings and this is how I feel.
Yeah.
Now it's even more complicated because we have AI. So now you can make a video of a goldfish jumping out of the ocean and swallowing a person, right? And it's real, looks real, great graphics. So the social awareness question, that's tricky. That's tricky because I like to think I'm a very socially aware person, but at the same time, I also feel that I don't do enough fact checking, but I can't, right? Because who has the time when you're scrolling Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and you see an article? It does take time to now go back. How credible is this article? Who's the source? Are they credible? The biggest thing that I've done to like try to be socially aware is follow people or people's pages that I know are credible, like Neil deGrasse Tyson's, right? I follow him. I like what he's posting about all the positive changes in the world because I like to focus on positivity and look at the positive things. And I feel like that's not made up. That's not AI. That's true stories that he's sharing. So I feel like we are in a kind of a slump when it comes to social awareness. Most people are just like Boogie said, they're just watching what they're seeing and then they're just kind of running with it and not fact checking. And then there's other people that are living in that fear mentality kind of energy and just kind of like the fear mongering is just getting out of hand. So I feel like we're in a real bind with this one. What are your thoughts, Rob, after Boogie?
Sorry to interrupt, Rob. What Uma just said about, just focusing on only the positive. I already, in that aspect of you saying my brain is running like 10,000 miles an hour, just going, I found a weakness there. Because for me to understand positivity, I need to know what the negativity is to educate myself and others where that negativity and find the positivity from that negativity. Right. So, for example, there's a video I was just looking at of someone created a CGI image with AI of all the Australian Air Force flying over our capital, and people thought it was real. And the first thing I said is, one, those aircrafts had no shadow on the ground based on where the sunlight is. Because of the survival skills in me, is I went into hypervigilance, breaking down, find the false. Right. So I play this thing in my head. One of these things are not like the other. One of these things don't belong. So every time I'm looking around, I'm trying to find the negative of what doesn't belong in this scene. And that's why I notice. And that's the problem with society today. They're not, their observation skills don't exist. And because of that, they have this fear of knowing. And that fear of knowing means that they don't want to know any negativity because they don't want to have to deal or cope with it. But for us to be positive and move forward, we need to see the negative to overcome it. So it's like everything in your life. You have a bill you can't afford, but you got to survive. So you got to face that and you got to pay it or come to an arrangement on an arrangement plan. That's a positive. So you don't, instead of paying the full lump sum, you're paying part of it. So you still have money for food. Do you see where I'm coming from? So you're just focusing on one. That's why I find the time when if I see something, I went, okay, save. I'm going to come back to that because I need an answer. So I chase facts, but I also chase the negativity to be informed. And right now, as I'm talking to you, guess what popped up on my notification? Donald Trump is considering pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell.
Oh, yeah. They asked him about Diddy earlier today.
Yeah. So I'm always staying informed. I may not like what I read, I may not like what I hear or see, but it teaches me how to deal with it. And if I let that problem rule my life, then that's my problem. But the way I train myself is, yeah, I see that, typical, and I move on. That's my positivity. I'm not surprised. I'm moving on.
I think
Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of
yeah.
sense. And I think that it's a great, healthy way to deal with what we have. Like, I personally don't watch the news. I have anxiety, right? And it is not good to my health to watch these things. And I, like you said, I go into hyper vigilant, right? And I go into panic mode. So do I live knowing the truth of what's going on out there and just be in a constant state of stress? Or do I ignore what's going on out there, create as much as I can my happy little bubble, live in my happy little bubble, and have good health? And that's what I chose, right? Now, people have some feelings about that and some type of way. Well, what if the world comes to an end? Well, I guess I'm going to die, right? Like, that's just, I don't have any answer for you. But I like the way Boogie looks at things, is that he's not looking for the bad news to go into fear. He's looking at the bad news to go into debunking it. And I think that's something we can all learn. Rob, I'm going to let you give your opinion on this topic, and then it's time for us to roll out.
I just think social awareness is, for me, it's just more like being self-aware. You know, it's like Boogie said, being aware of things around you, people, situations, and such. And I like his concept of just debunking negativity and such. I think it's just a balance of knowing how much social awareness you have, because no one person can have all of the knowledge. Like, it's kind of implausible for any one person to have the knowledge of everything around, globally. You just take in as much info that you can, and then just really filter out the things that don't really work with your life and how you're flowing through day to day. So, but today people are really into just not paying attention whatsoever. It doesn't even have to be a big global scale. Like, I just see people walk across the street with no regard of looking both ways. That was one of the first things I learned as a kid. Look both ways before you cross the street. Now people just like casually walking across the street, just expecting a car not to hit them. I'm like, if I'm going to place a bet on the two items in the street, I'm placing it on the car, because you're a fragile human being. Pay attention to the things around you that will actually do damage to you, whether it's physically or mentally. And most people don't. Most people on trendy um, TikTok dances and stuff like that. And it's like, nah, be a lot more aware of things around you than what's trendy out there in the interwebs.
I love
I
that.
I made a bet with a guy. This is not even 2 years ago. We got off the train. We were walking out to the station, and I went, "That girl is going to get hit by a bus." And he goes, "Oh, don't say that." And less than 5 seconds, bam, she got hit by the bus because she was, one, struggling to walk in heels. Now that heels was taller than her. Two, her head was so deep into her phone, it's like she was an ostrich. And I could see the buses getting ready to pull out, and did not look left, did not look right, and she got whacked. Luckily she didn't die. But my mate goes, "How the hell did you pick it up?" It's like just adding the numbers up as I'm walking, and
Yeah,
that's the first thing my brain caught on, you know. So
that's the capability of it.
mhm.
Listen, guys, I want to thank you so much for coming out tonight. Big shout out to Boogie. Thank you so much for
Oh, thanks for having me.
participating. Yeah, in my
Mm.
first YouTube podcast of the Lotus Pond Show. Do you want to tell people how they can find you if they're interested in following up on you, or following you on social media?
Not at the moment. I'm trying to stay off social media.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, he's not really one
He
to
is.
want to
Yeah.
follow, but Rob, I know that you do want people to follow you on social media, so I'll let you list your links.
I just love how Boogie is socially aware. How he doesn't want nobody following him right now. You can find me on Brand 30 on Instagram and on TikTok, and in the future we'll be on various other social media platforms, but mainly TikTok and Instagram on Brand 30.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rob. I appreciate you. I appreciate you, Boogie. And I appreciate Blue Bloods too. He had to leave earlier, but thank you to everybody who showed up. Guys, this is a show that will be here every Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Lotus Pond. And I want to say this, I will not be here on October 13th. That is my partner's birthday. So we are going to be celebrating that night. So next week we will not have a show, but on the following Monday, the 20th, we will have a show and we'll be back here. If you are interested in being a guest on my show, please, if you can, just hit me up on IG, the Lotus and the Light, or UmaB1111. That's what I have there, UmaB1111. Let me know and I'll be happy to bring you onto my show. We like to discuss current events, difficult topics, trending topics, and we do appreciate your input. So thank you guys so much for joining us. I really appreciate you guys, and I'll see you soon.